After Okehazama, he governs. Owari turns into a machine shop for empire. The parts are not iron and gears, but rice, roads, men, and time. He treats each like a component that must fit, or be filed down. Mounted constables ride set circuits. Watch huts carry chalked timetables. Bridges have inspection boards with names, village foreman inked in bold strokes. Miss a deadline, and the lash is punctual. Road crews patch ruts by order of priority. Supply spines first, market feeders second, grand approaches last. The road is a vein. His armies are the blood. He rethreads the courier network. Relay posts, shakuba, sit a half day apart. Fresh horses wait under thatch. Sealed packets bear lacquer sigils that jump queues. Orders written at dawn in Gifu can be shouted at midnight in Kiyosu. Speed is policy. Granaries, kura, become temples to rice. Ledgers track koku by village, by season, by weather. He visits unannounced, lifts lids, rubs rice between fingers. Dry, clean, no mildew. Scribbles a single brush mark. Approval, or the beginning of someone's bad month.
He could smell a lie in the rice. "You watered the floors," he said. "Do not water the books." And we didn't. Ever again.
Promotions run on results. A sandal bearer who gets 30 wagons over a broken bridge in the rain becomes transport captain by evening. A high-born retainer whose unit's sandals rot gets cashiered by morning. Punishments snap like traps, but always with a named rule and written cause. Fear, but predictable fear. Nobunaga slashes the old guild arteries, Tsar that throttled trade, and nails his proclamation to market gates. Rakuichi-rakuza. Free markets, guild privileges void. In Gifu, Sakai, Nagahama, stall fees simplify, tolls compress. 19 stamps become 3. The line at the gate shortens. The line at the tax clerk lengthens. And he smiles.
Under Oda, we paid tax, but kept profit. Bandits vanished. Debts were collected. Our ledgers fattened. He made fear reliable.
He doesn't despise coin like an old noble. He respects its velocity. He marries market days to muster days. Rice convoys hit river landings on tide tables. He posts bugyo, magistrates who weigh, measure, and clap thieves to pillars where crowds set the sentence with their eyes. The arquebus, Portuguese thunder, goes from curiosity to discipline. He hires smiths to copy locks, barrelers to bore true, powder men to dry saltpeter. He drills rotating volleys until muscle memory replaces bravery.
1 prime, 2 charge, 3 ram. Aim, fire.
Tenka Fubu is not a motto, it's a maintenance schedule for conquest. Logistics, merit, market reform and relentless tempo. He wins Friday's war with Monday's paperwork.
He orders kenchi, land surveys, tying tax to measured yield, not noble fiction. Surveyors pace fields with cords, compute in tan and chor, convert harvests into koku on parchment that looks like a threat. Villages now owe numbers, not favors. He issues night watch edicts in Kyoto. Neighborhoods sworn to police their own alleys. Fire watches rotate. Curfews bite. A thief can still run, but he runs through names, and names are what Nobunaga collects. He experiments with sumptuary rules, not to be fussy, but to signal. Silk, swords, saddles, who wears what, where and when, become lines on a graph of power. Dress wrong in the wrong place, and you will learn about clarity. 1568. Kyoto. He enters the capital with drum and discipline. Ashikaga Yoshiaki, last of a fading line, becomes shogun because Nobunaga says so. The ceremony shines. The strings are invisible, running back to an Oda war fan. In Kyoto's cat's cradle of smiles and knives, he posts edicts. No private tolls on the main roads. Pass papers from Oda Bugyo outrank petty barriers. Weapons in the capital must obey the watch. Price fixing is treason if it slows the army.
After dark, the watch calls the hour. The drunkards still sing, but knives go back in sleeves faster. When they don't, a list appears, and a rope follows.
He hires anyone who can make the machine hum. A rice counter with perfect memory is suddenly Deputy Bugyo. A ferryman who reads currents like scripture becomes river master. A carpenter with a genius for scaffolds gets a war stipend and 3 apprentices. He courts Sakai's merchant princes and listens when Jesuits talk canon and carpentry. Christianity? Useful as leverage against Buddhist leagues and as a trade conduit, so long as its shepherds remember who tends the wolves. Nobunaga will burn a temple or a church if it claims a second sovereignty.
He's less ideologue than engineer. If a creed moves guns and gold along predictable routes, he tolerates it. The minute it invents a parallel chain of command, he crushes it. Tenka Fubu is jealous by design.
He stamps his correspondence with 3 characters. Tenka Fubu. Spread military rule over the realm. Not a prayer, an operating manual. Power needs stages. He begins planning Azuchi, a lakeside statement in stone and gold, while in Kyoto, he turns the tea room into a court within the court. With Sen no Rikyu, he sponsors Chanoyu, where 2 men in a small room weigh a nation in the silence between whisk and sip.
He entered like wind in a pine, sat like a mountain, drank like a sparrow. When he rose, the room knew who breathed and who exhaled, because he allowed it.
He knows the theatre of fear. He parades captured banners upside down, gifts a rival's helmet to a market child, rides without palanquin, dust on his greaves, so the street thinks him inevitable rather than distant. He continues the hard language of hostages and marriages, ropes braided between houses. A loyal son spends a season in his castle. A niece goes to a border lord. Letters flow with gifts and embedded demands. In barracks, Ashigaru drill to numbers, not courage. Spears standardized to arm's length plus a span. Arrows weighed. Cords braided to uniform burn rates. He tests powder by spark and bows by draw on a measured peg. Sloppy becomes a kind of treason.
They said heroics are for songs. For us, there is drill. It was easier in a way. You do the count, you live.
He acknowledges the quiet sorcery of credit. Rice warrants in Osaka and Sakai begin to trade like promises. He blesses what works and punishes what doesn't. A merchant whose notes settle on time finds Oda guards close to his warehouses and Oda buyers first in line. The Mori glare from the inland sea. Splinters of Takeda pride still glitter. Uesugi banners billow beyond mountains. Nobunaga does not reach for them yet. He starves, slices, buys, and waits, bleeding enemies through roads and laws before swords taste them. All of this, edicts, ledgers, roads, relay bells, tea bowls, is force by other means. It is how Tenka Fubu breathes when no drums sound. But some powers don't read edicts. They chant. The Ikoiki, leagues of believers with pikes and fervor, build temple cities with their own tax, their own courts, their own truth. They shelter daimyo, they tithe roads, they bless defiance. Above Kyoto, Mount Hiei, A forest of halls and monks has watched for centuries, granting sanctuary and leverage. To Nobunaga, they are not gods. They are parallel governments, and parallel governments are war.
He handled the coin and the sword with one hand. For the other, he saved fire.
The machine is ready, markets humming, guns dry, roads tight, courtiers nervous. Kyoto is arranged. The shogun is seated, on a chair whose legs he can saw off any dawn he chooses. And above it all, on that sacred ridge, a storm begins to glow in his imagination, the same color as lacquered flames.
When Nobunaga looks at Mount Hiei and the Ikko bastions, he doesn't see monasteries. He sees rival states. Tenka Fubu allows no room for that. What follows is not piety or impiety. It is consolidation.
He has made order. Now he will make an example. Kyoto gleams again. Lanterns on bridges, watch drums marking the hours, caravans sliding through with stamped papers and counted wheels. Nobunaga's machine hums. But beyond the checkpoints and proclamations stand powers that do not apply for permits. Militant faith, organized, armed, and ancient. The Ikko-Ikki, leagues of believers pledged to a simple, burning creed. Namu Amida Butsu, not just prayer but banner. They have temple towns with walls and granaries, courts and treasuries, states within the state. Daimyo shelter there, debts disappear there, armies bleed trying to pry them out. And above the capital, Mount Hiei, a forest of halls and bells, where monks have watched Kyoto's rise and ruin for centuries. Sanctuary when it suits, sabotage when it must. To Nobunaga, they are not mysteries, they are rival governments. And Tenka Fubu allows one sovereignty. Nobunaga marches into the high woods, no grand speech, an edict in his head. Cut the root, not the leaves.
Temples are halls if they house swords. Halls are strongholds if they shelter enemies. Strongholds we burn.
The order is total. Halls are fired, storehouses broken, cloisters pulled down. The sacred mountain glows hellish red over Kyoto. Bells melt and run like tears of bronze.
To later eyes, it looks like sacrilege. To Nobunaga, it's statecraft. Hiei is a rival jurisdiction capable of taxing, harboring, and projecting force. Erasing it is not theological, it's constitutional.
Kyoto wakes to ash on the morning wind, a warning carried by the weather. There will be no second sovereignty. The Nagashino complex, temple towns spread across river islands and reed marsh south of Owari, defies him next. A maze of waterways, causeways, and stout stockades. The Ikko know the channels like veins in their own hands. First assault, blood and failure. Second, floods, fever, and retreat. Nobunaga changes the question. Not how to storm, how to starve. He throws dikes across backwaters, seizes ferry landings, buys or burns the barges. Summer turns to autumn, turns to hunger. When he finally lights the third siege, 1574, the fire has been smouldering inside for months.
Where there had been water, there was mud. Where there had been boats, there were pikes and curses. Then smoke, and the sky went dark at noon.
The Nagashino bastions vanish, first as markets, then as maps, then as memories. Grain flows again, to Oda, not to Amida. The great test is Ishiyama Hongan-ji, a fortified temple city on Osaka Bay. Its walls are doctrine, its docks, arteries, its granaries, faith made edible. Behind them, the Iko-Iki can fight a war for years. Nobunaga tightens a belt of forts, ditches and watchboats. On land he chews outward, field by field, suburb by suburb. But the sea keeps the temple alive. The Mori navy runs supplies along the coast, rice, powder, hope. So he builds a navy. He elevates a coastal brawler, Kuki Yoshitaka, and tasks him with a simple problem that takes a genius to solve. Stop the sea. The first battle at Kizugawaguchi, 1576, cuts against him. The Mori sail through with seasoned oars and cruel experience. Nobunaga rewrites the plan. Heavier Atakebune warships, higher freeboard, armoured bulwarks against arrows and fire, floating walls with teeth.
If they will not respect our swords, they will respect our timber.
Again. The Mori expect oars and arrows. They meet guns and bulk. Kuki's line holds. Fireships die against wet planking and disciplined buckets. Mori supply junks break off or sink smoking into the bay. The sea gate closes.
This is Nobunaga's habit. Lose, learn, level up. Land or sea, he iterates. The second Kizugawaguchi is a textbook in adaptation under Tenka Fubu.
On shore the ring tightens. Rice runs out. Powder turns precious. At last, after 10 years of siege and counter-siege, negotiation and starvation, Honganji yields. The temple's heart, its abbatial authority, is escorted out under guarantees. Its walls are levelled. Osaka becomes a place for markets, not monasteries. For now. Amid these sieges, a different rival tests the leash. Ashikaga Yoshiaki, the shogun Nobunaga himself seated in Kyoto, trades whispers with enemies, strings of silk with hidden hooks. Nobunaga answers with urban clarity. He marches into Kyoto, expels Yoshiaki, and raises the last illusions of the Muromachi order.
The shogun had a title. Oda had roads.
No more puppets. Only the hand. By now, the populace understands the new bargain. Walk the road with papers, you pass. Pay the tariff the board says, you trade. Keep the curfew, you sleep. Break the bargain, and the response is precise. A thief nailed to a post at noon, with an edict above his head, listing the exact law he broke. A corrupt guard paraded, with his bribe pouch pinned to his collar. Fear, yes, but predictable fear. And commerce loves predictability more than mercy.
We feared his punishments. We loved his schedules.
With Hiei and Honganji quiet, the realm is flatter than it has been in a century. No temple cities taxing roads, no mountain monasteries harboring armies. The only banners that matter now are clan and Oda. Nobunaga turns from faith to flesh and blood rivals. In the east, a cavalry legend prowls, Takeda Shingen, then Katsuyori after him, icon of the mounted charge and the samurai myth. In the west, the Mori still hold coasts and pride. Tenka Fubu has erased parallel states. Now it will erase legends.
By destroying sacred sovereignties, Nobunaga narrows politics to the thing he controls best: war supplied by administration. What comes next is the demonstration that even myth, armoured on horseback, can be reduced to drill and powder.
A riverbank, wooden palisades, ranks that fire like a metronome. Nagashino waits ahead, where the cavalry charge meets counting and dies. Summer, 1575. Mikawa Totomi borderlands. A river curls through fields toward a small hilltop fort called Nagashino. Behind its palisades, Tokugawa Ieyasu's men, hungry, short on powder, battered by raids. Across the countryside moves a storm of banners. The Takeda army under Katsuyori, heir to Shingen, the tiger of Kai. The Takeda crest, 4 diamonds in a windmill, flashes like a spell. Their cavalry is a legend men tell their sons, that hooves can break iron, that courage can outrun arrows, that a single charge can force a nation to kneel. Tokugawa sends desperate messages upriver. The enemy is everywhere. If the fort falls, the road to Mikawa yawns open. Oda Nobunaga reads the dispatch, taps the edge of the paper, and smiles a private, thin smile. A field, a river, a legend. Perfect conditions for a lesson. He marches to Shitaragahara, the plain above the river, and builds his weapon. Not a new sword, a shape. He throws a palisade across the field, 3 long lines of waist-high wooden fences with gaps wide enough for a man to run through, too narrow for a horse to drive its strength. Behind them he arrays arquebusiers in ranked blocks, gunners in 3 lines, drilled like clock springs. He staggers the units, interlocks the fields of fire, and situates spearmen to plug any hole that appears. The river guards one flank. Low ground and muddy banks foul the enemy's footing on the other end.
This is geometry with blood in it. The palisade is not a wall, it's a metronome. It slows the enemy's rhythm until the gun line's rhythm can kill him.
Quartermasters count powder horns and shot bags. Runners fetch fresh matchcord, braided to burn at a uniform rate. Bowmen are assigned to pick fire arrows off the palisade if the enemy tries to ignite it. Water buckets are placed at intervals. The order goes out. No individual heroics. Obey the count.
Listen for the drum. Don't race the man beside you, you race the drill. Aim at the belt. Belt drops the man, man drops the banner.
The Takeda come as if history itself is riding. Pennons snapping, lacquered cuirasses flashing vermilion, mounted retainers gripping lances and curved swords. Drums beat the old cadence. Charge, shock, scatter.
Break their fence and break their nerve. One rush to the throat, and the field is ours.
Skirmishers crack against the Oda Tokugawa screen. Arrows answer arrows. The river mutters, indifferent. Then the Takeda form in waves, cavalry echelons stacked deep, and the ground starts to shake. They come. The first line hits bowshot, twang. They hit gunshot, and the fence turns into a saw. Horses rear at the unfamiliar wall of wood and noise. Men tumble. The charge wobbles, loses cohesion, presses in through gaps. Spearmen step, set, stab. Gunners kneel and prime again as the second rank steps forward to fire.
The air tore. The ground lifted. I saw my lord's banner fall like a leaf.
The survivors wheel back. In the Takeda rear, officers shout the only order they understand. Again. They charge. Again the metronome. Prime charge, ram, aim, fire. Reload, step, fire. The line does not hero. It functions.
Nobunaga's genius here isn't the gun. Everyone had guns. It's the system that makes 100 cheap guns behave like one expensive thought.
Rain spits and strengthens, and the chroniclers will argue for centuries. Did Nobunaga plan for showers to dampen the horse advantage? Did he throw up roofs of straw along the palisade to keep pans dry? What is certain is what the men do. They keep the powder workable, the pans primed, the count steady. Officers walk the line checking match lengths with their fingers, slicing off excess to keep burn rates uniform.
Don't look at them. Look at your measure.
Takeda Katsuyori commits deeper. More lines, more lances. He must win now. Every moment of delay cedes another inch to the metronome. Wave after wave meets wood and math and dies in the intervals between drum beats.
What dies at Nagashino is a story. that courage and pedigree can overcome process. Nobunaga proves that trained repetition, boring, disciplined, ungallant, beats glory.
When the Takeda are spent, Nobunaga moves from anvil to hammer. Signal flags snap, drums change voice. Reserve Ashigaru advance to plug and push. Spearmen vault the palisade through the gaps designed for them. Samurai contingents step out in disciplined files toward the ruptured enemy line. On the far flank, Tokugawa Ieyasu, patient as a winter heron, leans in. He has watched the legend bleed all morning, and now adds weight, precise and merciless.
Now, no pursuit beyond the mark. Cut once, step. Cut again.
The Takeda army collapses inward on its own confusion. Banners knot, then vanish. The plain is mud and bodies and broken spearheads. What was once poetry about horses becomes the prose of retreat. When the rain finally gives up, the plain stinks of saltpeter and blood. Messengers ride with carefully worded letters. Victory reported without boasting. Supplies requested without begging. Rewards recommended with just enough politics to make friends and not enemies. The news outruns them on whisper and fear. In castle towns, men talk of a day when guns spoke louder than horses. In Kyoto, courtiers sketch new hierarchies with their fans. In distant Kai, the Takeda legend shrinks by a head and several thousand saddles.
Nagashino doesn't end the Takeda, but it ends the mystique that cavalry and courage can dictate terms to a state that drills. It is a hinge where the old martial romance gives way to administrative modernity.
Nobunaga's machine proves it can solve myths. But machines have makers, and makers have enemies. He turns to building a stage for his power. Stone terraces above Lake Biwa. Painted screens that tell the story as he wants it told. A palace fort whose silhouette will lecture the horizon. Azuchi. The tiger is gone. The metronome holds. And on a hill by the water, the demon king raises a city to show the nation what victory looks like. A cavalry legend shattered by a metronome of fire, and a castle rising over Lake Biwa like a promise carved in gold. The world is learning to move on Nobunaga's schedule. On the next episode, we conclude the story. Step inside Azuchi, power made visible, where tea-bowls crown kings, foreign cannons change maps, and markets hum on timetables sharper than swords. Then climb with us to Kyoto, to a temple named Honnoji, where a trusted hand strikes, the night blooms into flame, and the Demon King makes his final command. After the fire, Hideyoshi's sprint, Ieyasu's cage, and the long shadow Nobunaga casts over a nation that will not move again for centuries. I'm Adrian Locke, and this is Shadows of Power. If this gripped you, comment, like, and subscribe. Your support helps us craft more of these stories and bring them to you at the highest quality. Don't miss the finale.